So the other day I was casting games of StarCraft 2 for literally hours and I could not get a single video done. Here's the thing, as some of you might be aware, whenever I upload a commentated match of StarCraft 2, usually it's not necessarily the first game that I gave commentary to that day. In many of the instances, whenever I do a commentated match of SC2, I cast a couple of games and then I select the very best video, and that is the one that ends up on the YouTube channel. I only want to upload the most exciting games, and if I feel like my commentary is not that good, or if, I'm just in general not excited about the match, I usually will not end up uploading it because I only want to upload my very best work. Anyways, so the other day I could not get a video done for the life of me. I was getting a little bit frustrated because, I was casting for hours, I could not get a single video done, and when I get frustrated, obviously, my commentary becomes even worse, and then, all things considered, it just didn't really work out. And I was getting a little bit anxious that I might not be able to finish a video for that day. So I did what every grown adult does. I went on social media and I complained. No, but seriously, usually my Twitter is a very positive place, but I decided that, I was gonna vent for just a little bit. Now, Wardy, a StarCraft 2 commentator that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, I'll go ahead and post a link to his Twitch page down below in the description of this video, in case you do not know Wardy. But anyways, Wardy reached out and he's like, Loco, I got this really sick match between two players that you usually don't cover on the YouTube channel, but I really think you should go ahead and cast it. So that's what we're doing here today. I am excited for this already because, this match right here has got Wardy's seal of approval, and Wardy casts a lot. He casts a lot more StarCraft than I do. But anyways, let's go ahead and get started by introducing the players before I blabber onwards about unrelated stuff. Spawning here in the top left-hand corner of Catalyst LE and playing with the blue Terran SCVs. He's from South Korea, of course. He goes by the name of Alive. His opponent spawning in the bottom right-hand corner. He's a player that, I'll be honest, I am not as familiar with. He's from China. He's playing with the red Protoss probes, and he goes by the nickname of Yishi. So Yishi is a player who is indeed from China, and most of the Chinese players seem to sort of like, bond together with StarCraft 2. They always come up with their own strategies, which is what makes this so very exciting. Usually they don't participate in other tournaments as much, although these days, particularly in 2017 and 2018 so far, you do see a lot more Chinese players, competing in tournaments. But for the longest time, they practiced amongst each other, and they had some really cool strategies because they weren't really, at the very least playing strategies that were similar to what the rest of the world was playing, which is super cool because they basically had a completely different playstyle compared to what a lot of other pros do. Anyways, so I'm excited to figure out what this game is gonna be all about. So far, pretty standard opener here. Yishi going for that gateway into the Cybernet Discord, then the Twilight Council, and now the Dark Shrine. This has been unscouted by Alive, of course. He hasn't really sent anything across the map just yet. That early probe scout was a bit of a nuisance, so the Reaper was forced to return back home as well. Alive is gonna have to micro around for a little bit, as the Adept already picked up the SCV that was building the command center. But now with that Cyclone coming up, I think the Cyclone should be able to ward it away with relative ease, and the Adept manages to retreat with its life intact, and now of course the command center should be able to finish up. Finally, Alive manages to get to the other side of the map. Now, smart positioning here already by Yishi. He's gonna make it impossible for this Reaper to actually jump up, so that means that his main base will be unscouted here. Nicely done. These Dark Templar, they are gonna come out without Alive knowing about it. Let's have a look. Is he gonna have enough defense here available to deal with this already? Now, Yishi, of course, does have to cut some corners. Two Cyclones can do some serious damage. There is, however, already a shield battery coming up. Nice grenade usage there by Alive. But now with that shield battery here, I think that Yishi should be able to micro back and forth until the Dark Shrine is done. Of course, there's no repair available here for Alive. He did bring two Hellions as well. They're gonna swoop in too, go after that mineral line. Nicely done here by Alive. Recognizing the scenario and trying to see if he can potentially punish a greedy opponent. Dark Templar, though, is going to be able to finish up at least one of those Cyclones. Oh man, that target firing right there on those Hellions was beautiful, splitting them up individually. At the same time, though, while this is going on, Dark Templar are now moving into the natural location already of Alive. 9 probes, though, did end up dying here on the other side of the map as well. We see that that Hellion still going to town. Eventually, the Dark Templar should be able to catch up, but now the DT has also here arrived near the main base of Alive. A bunker is now being constructed as well. Turns out there wasn't really a whole lot of energy available on these command centers initially. Now, at this point, there is enough, but I mean, you can't really just scan here and hope that one Marine will be able to get the kill. Dark Templars, though, still trying desperately to defend against this Hellion. It picked up 7 kills already, but that's 13 probes in total. Eventually, though, Missile Turret finishes up here, and Alive will be able to secure this location once more. He did end up losing all of the Cyclones. But all things considered, I mean, you can see right here on this overview screen, right, that it's most definitely the Protoss player who is currently ahead. Now, a couple of SCVs hugging each other there in the corner. Gotta say, this is, by the way, the reason why you always want to wall off against Protoss in TVP. Anyways, these SCVs hugging together there for just a little while. I think Yishi wants to try and see if he can force out another scan. There we go. And eventually the command center should be able to get back to work. Now, of course, Protoss did end up losing a lot of probes, but he's been chrono boosting a lot of new workers out as well. Even though Alive didn't really lose any SCVs, he still ended up losing a lot of mining time, right? And that's one of the things. I mean, forcing out these scans, it may seem like that is a disadvantage here for Protoss, but every scan is not a mule, right? And a mule mines for like 300 resources, so Yishi is okay with just following around like this and forcing a couple of scans here from time to time. Now, there is a Raven out now for Alive. Nicely done by him. Responding to this, knowing very well that he is going up against a Chinese player, and they will usually try and do something that you might not necessarily be used to playing against. It's a really cool thing to see the different regions in StarCraft 2 come up with their own play styles, but Yishi now has decided that he wants to play that macro game. Double Forge here coming up for our Protoss player. There are more and more units now coming up here as well, though, for the Terran, and already, look at that damage output. Yishi is actually capable of grabbing himself the kill there on the Raven. Still, of course, ooh, nice target firing there by Alive. He is going to be able to kill some of those units, but even though Alive is definitely the favorite in this match, so far he is really already noticing the tricks that this Chinese Protoss has got up his sleeve. I mean, a lot of you will obviously be familiar with, for example, Haas, who plays hyper aggressive strategies, but there are a lot of players out there that will play their own styles. And even though Alive is going to be very familiar with the South Korean meta of StarCraft 2 and maybe the international one, this is something that is not particularly common here for Yishi. Or for Protoss players. I like this a lot. So Yishi is going to move across right now. He's got Blink on these Stalkers, so he's perfectly capable of dealing a lot of damage. Nice little poke back and forth. Ugh. Observer just barely overextending. Small little misplay. He didn't know of the location of that missile turret. Still, though, the micro here is on point. Does look like Alive will be able to ward away those units here for the time being, but he loses another one of those Stalkers. While this is all going on, though, our Protoss player is now securing a third Nexus as well. Third command center, nowhere to be seen just yet. So Alive is going to be forced to go for a bit of a drop. Going for the double medevacs. He's going to be able to arrive on the other side of the map, even though there are Blink Stalkers out. Now, Blink Stalkers, they are going to be great if they are in position, but at this point, there's no energy on the Nexus here. Mass recall will not be available, and these medevacs will be able to arrive on the other side of the map completely unnoticed until the units are already dropping off. A very quick response time there by Yishi. Will be able to get majority of the probes out of there. Beautiful target firing there, slowing down these upgrades for Yishi for a little while as well. A few probes actually do still get picked off anyway, but with a Colossus here, I think he's probably going to be able to hold on just fine. Stalkers blinking forward, getting the kill on one of those medevacs. Yishi continuously warping in more and more of those Stalkers and Zealots. But for now, it looks like we have arrived at a pretty... I mean, there's been a lot of tricks here in the early game, right? But we have arrived at a pretty standard mid-game. Keep in mind that Dark Shrine, of course, can still warp in more and more Dark Templar. The Dark Templar actually... Oh, perfect timing here, by the way. Look at that. Neither player seems to be aware of this, but still Yishi is the one who gets the upper hand. One medevac still threatening here on the right-hand side as the majority of the Terran army is now making a move for that third Nexus here instead. It has been unscouted for now, but Alive knows that it should be up at this point in the game. Dark Templar did force the cancel on that third command center. That makes this a bit of an awkward position because Alive is forced to deal a bunch of damage. Everything is getting more and more delayed for him. But already, 2 Colossi are available now. I don't really see exactly what you can do as a Terran player when you're going up against double Colossi with only a very small army. The third command center will now be built here over near the natural instead, but I wonder if Alive is scratching himself already. He's like, wait, what exactly is going on in this game? What exactly is happening right now? He's gonna be forced to play the catch-up game. Yushi has got double upgrades, usually something a little bit greedy. You don't really want to take that risk. Obviously, Alive can definitely get back into this game if he were to go for a massive drop and it works out, but at that point, he would also be putting all of his eggs in one basket, not something you would usually see at this level of play. Alive is simply going to try and simply make a bit of a move for it. He will be able to get the kill on that pylon. Second pylon also going up, cancelling that warp in there. A lot of Protoss units, though, are coming back towards the main base, but Alive actually is stimming forward, going to continuously try and pick off those units, but I don't know if that was the smartest move. I mean, sure, he ended up dealing a bunch of damage here, but all of the important units here of our Protoss player are still alive. Liberator's now coming up. I like that move a lot here for Alive. He did also finish up the third command center, and at the very least, by going for this aggressive pushing, he's making it so that the Protoss can't really counterattack. Is there a War Prism out yet? I would love to see a War Prism at this point in the game. Instead, Yishi is gonna prioritize that third Colossus. I would really recommend going for a War Prism pretty much anytime you arrive in the mid game if you are a Protoss player. Observers and War Prisms are your friend. Like, even just having it out on the map is a massive, massive advantage. Alive now, though, going for apparently the third CC at a bit of an unorthodox position, knowing that there's a pylon somewhere on the right-hand side of the map. One Dark Templar continuously moving forward. He will scout out exactly what is going on. He's almost like scouting with these Dark Templar right now, right? I mean, they deal a bunch of damage. And once again, look at this. This is such a nuisance, right? The Korean Terran player here wants to play aggressive, but he really can't. I mean, he can't really, you know, get his bases up and running if he keeps on moving these units across the map. One matter of fact, now in the back of the main base, still trying to pick off a couple of units here from time to time. Dark Templar still going to town at the third CC, and while Alive wants to go for a bit of a push, he may very well be forced to retreat now. There's a lot of Protoss units here available. Does look like the medevac was eventually warded away here as well. Alive is gonna try and do some nice stutter step micro, using that higher ground to his advantage now with those Liberators as well. Third command center eventually left, or landed rather, but that's still 7 SCVs there in total, which is really, really solid work there. Yushi slowly building up that Protoss Death Bowl, right? Using Dark Templars as army units. I like this a lot. This is something that we haven't really seen a lot in StarCraft 2, but there's no denying that if you got a big army and you mix in a couple of Dark Templar, if they are not target fire down, they deal so much damage. Their damage output is insane. They target fire down, you know, the big units, they can go down very, very rapidly. Is this still unscouted? Oh my god, there's such a cheeky position here as well. I love this. Yushi continuously warping in, trying to see if there's maybe already a fourth command center. Not quite the case at this point, but that could have been if Alive decided not to add on additional unit-producing structures here instead. I wonder what the Protoss player's point of view is right now. I think he's going to finish up the 3-3 upgrades and then go for one massive push. He should be able to max out by the time that these upgrades finish up. Alive, though, just about to finish his own 2-2 upgrades as well. He really wants to prevent this Protoss player from reaching that maxed out state. Quite surprised he hasn't actually added on a whole lot of Vikings just yet. How many Vikings does he have at this point? Yeah, 0. Just a bunch of Liberators and Medevacs at this point. Obviously, there's not that many force fields here available, but still. These Colossi are gonna go to town. I always do think it's a good idea to have at least some Vikings so you can poke in and out for just a little while when the Protoss players and the Terran players are getting in position for the engagement. Big drop now, though, headed towards that main base. Yushi is going to be forced to defend against a lot of this. These Liberators putting themselves in a really good position. War Prism immediately gets picked off as well, but these Colossi, man, getting so much damage in from a distance. This is really one of those new school, developments, though, in TVP. A lot of people were prioritizing High Templar for the longest time, but now all of a sudden it seems like Colossus have made a bit of a comeback. They didn't necessarily get buffed up, but they are once again a unit that you do see a lot in this meta. I'm quite surprised, though. I like this response actually from Alive quite a bit. Rather than going for any kind of Viking play, initially I was a little bit hesitant to see that, and actually, ooh, they may be able to get the kill there. Oh, 2 hero marauders. But rather than going for a lot of Vikings, he's just saying, you know what? I'm just gonna make a lot of Liberators instead. If I get maxed out on Liberators, what are you gonna do about it? Right? If you don't have any High Templar, I can just siege them all up together. If you don't have any air units either, you're gonna have a hard time picking them up with only Stalkers. Action going on, though, all over the screen. One Marine apparently did not, you know, survive the Hunger Games. He was selected as tribute to move forward here to scout for any Protoss army movement. There's his brother right here on the left-hand side as well. Alive in this bit of a weird position. I actually would like him to go for like a 4th command center right around this time as well. I do think he's really looking to get one here in just a bit. Instead, he has decided to go for a big push. Protoss, though, already at 3-3 upgrades. He's going to be at a phenomenal point where he can just simply deal a lot of damage. As long as these Liberators don't siege up, he's going to be able to deal so much of it as well. More and more Liberators coming up, though. Oh my god, how many Liberators is that already? 6 with 3 more spawning in just a second. And this is what you can do, right? You can zone away any army from getting in here and force the kill on that Nexus once again, effectively forcing this this Protoss player to sit on only 3 bases. Remember the drop here on the left hand or on the right hand side, rather? Those medevacs never went home. They're gonna go after some of these unit producing structures instead, picking up some of those warpins as well. At the same time, though, a big fight here on the left hand side of the screen too. We see now a big blink forward, trying to go after those Liberators. It looks like Alive will end up losing the majority of them as well. Zealot still charging forward, baiting him actually towards that Widow Mine is Alive. Still, medevacs are pretty much everywhere. One Liberator picking up a couple of kills over here as well. Medevac is now dropping off here on the in the main base here of our Protoss player, and all of a sudden, Alive is everywhere. Reinforcing with bigger units as well. Now moving over his main command center towards the 4th base as well. Sniping 2 of those observers, which is really nicely done. And while the medevacs will likely be warded away here eventually, that is still a huge amount of damage. This Marine Ball caught at a bit of a weird angle. These Colossi still desperately trying to deal some damage, but if there's one thing that Alive has done, he has successfully made it really difficult for the Protoss player to really get that damage in with these Colossi. Microing like 4 different engagements at once, right? And this is what these Korean Terran players do so very well. They are incredible when it comes to multitasking. Hitting with the Liberator, microing 2 drops at the same time, and then also pushing with the main army while expending and while macroing up reinforcements. It's a very difficult thing to do, and Yishi was not quite ready for that multitasking. He did end up losing a substantial amount of workers, but I wouldn't say that Alive is necessarily at an advantage right now. He does have that economical lead though, which I do like for him at this point, but his army isn't really made to withstand a huge amount of Colossus just yet. Yishi in a bit of a desperate move right now too, though. I mean, his main is running out. Natural has got a bunch of idle probes, but I mean, you can send him to mining, but it's not really going to bring in a lot more resources. He really needs a 4th Nexus, and that one has been cancelled like 2 or 3 times already. One Stalker, target firing down the medevac, but the medevac is still going to be able to unload some of those units. Ugh! Slight mistake there, actually, by our Terran player. At the same time, a Dark Templar once again going to town, doesn't care about that missile turret, knowing very well that there might not be an army there. Alive now has got a big chunk of his force out on the map once again. Zealots and Stalkers are reinforcing continuously, but at the same time, the Colossi have arrived on the other side of the map. They're going to be able to pick up some of those units. While this is going on, though, we do see that Bio Bull stimming forward, trying to push into that Protoss Natural. At the same time, the Protoss Death Ball has arrived on the other side of the map. This is a very scary force. There's not really a whole lot available here for our Terran player in blue. Natural Nexus here may very well end up falling. Yishi is gonna more than likely lose it. Nice scan there. Paying attention to this fight as well, but how is he gonna deal with all of those units here instead? The reinforcing army, though, is pretty menacing. Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't think there's enough Stalkers there to deal with those Liberators. Mass recall was forced. Yishi got himself a base, but so did Alive with a relatively small clump of units. Some of these Zealots still trying to make their way towards the main army. They've been trying to catch up all the time, but it looks like they finally may be able to slice and dice up some of those Terran units. In the meantime, though, we see the Terran army once again here moving on the left-hand side of the screen. Action has been pretty much everywhere, all over the map so far. 4th Nexus now finally acquired here by our Protoss player, but still, there's a lot of Liberators up in the air, man. Stalkers desperately trying to target fire it down as well, but these Colossi are dealing a lot of damage to the Marines and Marauders here eventually. Medevacs picking up the majority of those units. That Archon actually got himself a whole lot of kills as well with the stacked up Liberators right on top of each other. Another Dark Templar, though, will be more in now, but I think that one may very well only be headed towards the natural expansion here eventually, or maybe it will hang out at the 4th just to pick it off here a little while later. Couple of photon cannons here inside of that main base. We see Zealots now desperately trying to make their way towards that third mineral line here as well over our Terran player. Terran, though, is going for that drop once again. Really getting a lot of value out of those medevacts. Trying to target fire down the cybernetics core. Of course, that makes it very difficult to warp in anything. But it does look like the Colossi will force the liftoff once again. A big chunk of the Terran army has now arrived here on the other side of the map. They're trying their very best to potentially pick up this fourth base, but it looks like the laser giraffes were split up properly. Some in the main base, some in the natural, and then some, of course, at the newly acquired fourth as well. Making that decision is really tricky. Once again, though, look at this scouting Dark Templar, right? Look at it. This is such a nuisance. You have to split your attention in so many spots, and if there's anyone who can do it, it's usually going to be a South Korean Terran player. But man, this has been a really close, action-packed game already. It's really hard to call who is currently ahead. Such an annoying little Dark Templar. Still, that's a lot of Terran army, though, moving forward right now. Reinforcements coming up as well. Leaving some of those medevac units up on the right-hand side, waiting for these Zealots to retreat. At the same time, though, we see continuous posturing here. And these Colossi, while they didn't get a lot of kills here in any of the major engagements, they have been picking up kill after kill after kill, you know, the longer that this game goes on. I mean, it's 14 kills, 11 kills, 9 kills, and 5 kills on them. That's a substantial amount of army. At the same time, though, some of this army has now made its way towards the fourth base once more. Warp Prism looks like it will be picked off. Planetary Fortress is now also morphing in here, but Yishi, rather than splitting up some of his units towards the third base, which is what I assumed was what he was gonna do, instead he has now decided to merge all of his units together and go for one all-out assault. The thing is, though, Alive will now finish up the Planetary Fortress here at the fourth command center, and that is gonna be a very, very scary force. Here we go, though. Liberators once again trying to deal a whole lot of damage. We see the Stalkers target firing them down to the best of their abilities. Zealots going to town against a lot of those Zealots, but that Liberator still lives and it's still dealing a lot of damage. While this is going on, some Marines have apparently made their way towards the bottom left-hand corner. The scanner will be forced to try and pick up the defending Dark Templar. Planetary Fortress, though, still holding for so very long. It's got 3 kills already, but eventually Yishi does manage to pick up a big chunk of that Terran economy once again. And in exchange, he actually got his Nexus still alive and up and running on the other side of the map. Beautiful play here by our Chinese Protoss player, showing us that different strategies certainly are an option, and you can definitely catch your opponent if you play it very, very well. Marauders actually trying to micro themselves back into those liberation zones. That's still 21 SCVs here in just a matter of minutes. Natural Command Center now left it up, and it's gonna head on over towards the fourth base. Fourth base, even though it morphed there into a Planetary Fortress, I thought it was gonna stay alive. Turns out that is not quite the case. Alive desperately trying to see if he can keep a fourth base alive, and while he initially did have the economic upper hand, all of a sudden he's finding himself against a 4-base Protoss. Now, this 4-base Protoss, though, I mean, it's once again knocked back into the Stone Age. Neither player really has got any high-tier units remaining whatsoever. Liberators being the highest tier 1, I guess, with the 1 Dark Templar here as well. Speaking of the Dark Templar, of course, it's going in for the counterattack, knowing that there's no Liberator, or no Planetary there anymore, but there is indeed a missile turret. Marauders, though, trying to deal as much damage as they can. They are stimming forward like no tomorrow. Great pickup there by Alive, trying to see if he can pick up those units just barely in the nick of time, baiting as much of this inside of the Liberation Zone as well. Looks like the Stalker will eventually be able to pick it up. Dark Templar notices, hey, wait a second, there is a missile turret. Maybe the Liberator will be forced here in just a bit. He's gonna hold position here right over on that corner. Yeah, making it hard to mine the right-hand mineral patches. And this is such a tricky game to call. This is such a tricky game. Oh my god, the SCV is trying to go in for the surround, trying to get this Liberator to shoot away at it, but it's still just barely not gonna be able to pick up that kill. My god, I see why Wardy liked this game. This one is so hard to call. Who's even ahead right now? I have no clue. I have no clue. We're arriving in a territory where I'm just making action sounds. I'm just gonna be like, ooh, ah. And we just, you know, watch pretty pictures and units explode and all that. Matter of fact, though, does get picked off there. Nicely done by Yishi. But these are the kind of moments where I will forget to commentate because I'm just staring at the screen. Couple of Hero Marines trying to stim across. They picked up four probes there, which is nicely done. Feel like they're doing a good job baiting all of this army back into the main base. 2 more medevacs here on the right-hand side as well, but Alive is gonna go back to basics, Marines, Marauders, and medevacs. And we see something similar here for Yishi, going for a lot of those Stalkers, and then a lot of those Zealots, and of course the Dark Templar as well. Still warping in more and more DTs. Sure, there's detection there, but they will be able to one-shot all of those SCVs. I mean, if I could see how many units were killed by Dark Templar this game, I think it's significantly higher than you might anticipate. Look at that. Both players losing roughly 30,000 or so resources. Another Liberator does get picked off there. Stalkers did blink forward though, and that means that the Marines and Marauders can all of a sudden go ahead and close the distance. Bit of an overextension here though by our Protoss player. He is gonna be forced back here. While he picked up 13 SCV kills, and I mean that Dark Templar here on the left hand side is still going to town, the Marine Marauder ball is slowly growing. The Marine Marauder ball is slowly growing, but there's only 9 SCVs remaining. 9 SCVs versus 36 probes. Alive's army is substantially bigger, but the longer that this goes on, the bigger that Protoss army will become as well. There's really not a lot available though. That's the thing, right? There's really not a lot available. Alive can't really rain down those mules either, because he knows he's likely gonna need it. As a matter of fact, there's really only 1 or 2 scans here available for our Protoss player, or for our Terran player rather, so we see more and more Dark Templar continuously joining in. Dark Templar can totally win this game. They can totally win this game. Beautiful force field splitting up part of that army. I feel like he needs to try and force 1 scan though, but still, that is a lot of Terran. Marines, Marauders, and medevacs, the gold standard of Terran ever since StarCraft 2 first came out. These Marines, of course, will run out of a lifespan here eventually. That shield battery providing a lot of support as well. More and more Zealots trying to charge forward as well. This is such a close fight. Trying his very best to micro those units to the best of his abilities. Actually, now some Protoss units are also target firing down some of those medevacs, but the medevacs are quickly running out of steam. They're still healing up all of those units, but at this point, most of the units do indeed have 1 personalized, medevac as well. Only 4 Marauders are remaining. Slowly though, Terran is trying to rebuild that economy. 4th base is now finally up and running here for Alive. At the same time though, Yishi is warping in more units, but he is not trading efficiently here whatsoever. Observer are coming up just in case that is gonna be needed, but it looks like Yishi will be forced to abandon this 3rd base once and for all, and that makes it really awkward though. That makes it really weird, because now his last lifeline is right here in the bottom left-hand corner. But all of his units are reinforcing from the natural. All of his army is currently in a natural. Apparently even Alive has decided right now, wait a second, there is a scan available, but instead he decides to go for, well, there's another scan available. He did just drop a couple of mules over here as well. Still, 1 Dark Templar ended up picking up a lot of kills. The base over here on the left-hand side was also forced away. Marines and Marauders, though, have been reinforced, and while Zealots are desperately trying to charge forward, I feel like there's still a little bit too much available. Probes now even being pulled off the line as well. This is an extremely close engagement. These probes are picking up a lot of the army, but Alive is the one who just barely obtains the victory. Woo! That was a really close and really well fought game. Can I go back into the replay for just a little bit? Can we analyze this situation for just a little while longer? I think the reason why Yishi decided to GG out is because he's effectively out of mining, right? I mean, main, natural, and 3rd are practically out of resources, and his 4th was gonna indeed end up falling. Did feel like a bit of a preemptive GG there in a way. I don't think Alive, if he would have been in that scenario, would have GG'd out just yet, but there's no denying, right? That's still a bunch of mules landing at this point in the game, and look, that income, it is gonna very quickly steamroll out of control. That Marine Marauder medevac army, of course, is very good at these, small engagements in particular. It's when all the Protoss units group together and max out when they become really scary, and Alive did a wonderful job preventing his opponent from ever really getting to that state. What a sick game. I hope you enjoyed watching it. If you did, make sure you hit that like button down below, and if you want to see more, you know what to do. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you get notifications as soon as future videos go live. Special shout out to the Patreon supporters. You guys are awesome. Thank you so much for supporting the channel directly. But for now, I want to thank you for watching. Have an amazing day. Do not forget to smile, alright, and I will see you in the next one.